Sarah Lee Kessler, news at noon anchor, and one of broadcasting's authorities on medicine's most sensitive human issues. Kessler, anchor, reporter, the news.
Headline News, I'm Cindy Close. Democratic presidential candidate Richard Gephardt is hoping for a sweeping victory at today's Michigan caucuses to put his faltering campaign back on track. His four Democratic rivals are planning wins of their own. Gene Randall reports.
Detroit's weather Friday was gray and overcast, though partly sunny skies were predicted for Saturday's voting. The political outlook was more uncertain. Democrat Richard Gephardt at a General Motors plant at Ypsilanti, Michigan, early Friday morning.
I think we're going to get a great reaction on tomorrow, on Saturday, in the Michigan caucuses.
Gephardt desperately needs a win here if he is to save his campaign. But he also says it would be a Michigan miracle. And in a speech in Detroit Thursday, the Missouri congressman began talking about a campaign legacy.
But at heart, our greatest victory has been to call the Democratic Party back to its essential role as an agent of fundamental change, a force for economic hope and opportunity.
Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis hopes to see Michigan knock Richard Gephardt out of the race. Running first in the polls in Michigan, Dukakis is counting on another well-financed state campaign to add to his convention delegate lead over the rest of the Democratic field. Dukakis is pushing hard for union support, which apparently prompted his switch on the need for new trade legislation. Jesse Jackson appears poised to do no worse than second on Saturday, and there is some feeling he could win Michigan.
When I become president, the working people of America have a friend in the White House.
Jackson's caucus eve schedule included appearances at the Wayne County Jail, where he addressed a group of inmates, and a labor rally, where he too pitched for support for members of the United Auto Workers Union.
And you can win. And together everybody can win. People can win.
Paul Simon will apparently ride out his expected poor showing in Michigan with an eye toward the April 5th Wisconsin primary. Senator Al Gore was due in Michigan late Friday. He is counting on Wisconsin, where he spent Thursday, to give him his first strong performance in a major state since Super Tuesday. 5 Democratic presidential candidates aiming for a share of the 138 National Convention delegates at stake in a Michigan caucus that resembles a primary with fewer polling places. The sun came back out in Detroit Friday afternoon, the kind of early spring weather that could make it a tough decision for Democrats to vote, especially when the polls will only be open for 6 hours. Michigan's Democratic caucus results are expected by early Saturday evening. Gene Randall, CNN, Detroit.
On the Republican front, Senator Robert Dole says he can read the numbers. Yesterday, Dole denied he was dropping out of the race, but said it was important to keep a Republican in the White House, even if it were George Bush. Dole said that for the time being, he would continue spreading his message.
But I've been saying now for some time, as a candidate, all the things I thought we should focus on, and nobody really seemed to care. But I think it's probably pretty much a foregone conclusion what's happening on the Republican side. But I still have some things to say. I still believe that there are issues that should be addressed. And lo and behold, as your candidacy weakens, you find more people willing to listen. I haven't quite figured that out yet.
Dole said he would possibly have something to say about his own campaign before the April 5th primaries in Wisconsin. The finances of Attorney General Edwin Meese are reportedly being investigated by an independent counsel. That's according to the Los Angeles Times. The paper says the inquiry is similar to an IRS net worth examination often conducted in cases of suspected tax evasion and illicit gains. The investigation reportedly covers transactions dating back to at least 1985. Critics say President Reagan may have paved the way to a miscarriage of justice in the Iran-Contra scandal. In off-the-cuff remarks yesterday, the president said he thinks Oliver North and the 3 other men indicted are innocent. Mary Tillotson reports.
North American heroes! North American heroes!
It was like a pep rally for Ollie outside federal court Thursday as Oliver North and his 3 co-defendants arrived to plead not guilty. On Friday, President Reagan took on the role of cheerleader-in-chief during a White House meeting with some college students.
I still think Ollie North is a hero. And on the other hand, in any talk about what I might do or pardons and so forth, I think with the case before the courts, that's something I can't discuss now. But I just have to believe that they're going to be found innocent, because I don't think they were guilty of any law-breaking or any crime.
Such comments from the president and his refusal to rule out pardons have led to speculation he will pardon North and company. North, his former White House boss John Poindexter, Richard Secord, and Albert Hakim are accused of defrauding the U.S. government by selling Pentagon weapons to Iran and funneling some of the profits to Nicaraguan rebels and millions more into private Swiss bank accounts controlled by Secord and Hakim. There is every likelihood the Iran-Contra trials will drag on until after Mr. Reagan leaves the presidency in January. But White House Chief of Staff Howard Baker predicts the president would not pardon the four men before a jury verdict.
Never rule out anything, but I think it's highly unlikely.
Baker and White House spokesman Marlin Fitzwater say the president was just saying what he thinks about North, and he has a right to do that. But sources close to the special prosecutor in the case say the president's remarks could cause problems by influencing potential jurors, a point echoed by Democratic Senator Alan Cranston.
For the chief executive, who is sworn to faithfully execute the law, making such a statement could lead to a miscarriage of justice.
Presidential pardon powers are so broad that right now Mr. Reagan could pardon anybody for anything they have ever been accused of or might ever be accused of. But constitutional lawyers say the president has to do whatever pardoning he wants to do between now and January 20th, Mr. Reagan's last day in office. Mary Tillotson, CNN, the White House.
Secretary of State George Shultz is set to meet with two members of a group affiliated with the Palestine Liberation Organization today. The two are from the Palestine National Council, often called the PLO's legislative arm. It's part of Shultz's effort to win support for a Middle East peace initiative. Israel's ambassador protested the meeting, saying it's in conflict with U.S. policy against dealing with the PLO. There are reports the U.S. is halting supplies of Stinger anti-aircraft missiles to Afghan rebels. Today's Washington Post quotes diplomatic and other sources as saying the U.S. is ending its shipments in anticipation of an agreement on a Soviet withdrawal from that country. The Post also says the U.S. is rushing $300 million in other military supplies to the rebels before any agreement can be reached that would ban outside assistance. The armed forces that keep Panamanian General Manuel Noriega in power are doing it for free. Several members of the Defense Forces said they did not receive their semi-monthly paychecks yesterday. An estimated 90% of Panama's businesses have been closed since Monday in a general strike aimed at ousting Noriega. Noriega is warning of another Vietnam if the U.S. tries to invade Panama. Robert Chambers will surrender to New York corrections officials today. Yesterday, the prep school graduate pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of first-degree manslaughter. Charles Feldman reports on the surprise move.
Although the jury in the so-called Preppy murder trial in New York was in its 9th day of deliberations Friday, unable to reach a verdict, the trial came to an abrupt end when Robert Chambers agreed to a plea bargain. Chambers, who was charged with second-degree murder, pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter, a lesser but still very serious charge. The 21-year-old prep school graduate also pleaded guilty to a separate burglary charge in an unrelated case. The plea bargain means Chambers will be sentenced to a term of 5 to 15 years for both crimes. The courtroom was hushed and tense as the deal was announced. Rumors had been circulating for over a day that the jury was not able to reach a verdict in the case. Chambers was asked several times by the judge if he accepted the plea bargain. Although he answered yes each time, he appeared furious and at one point seemed to be shaking his head no. Chambers, under questioning by the judge, admitted he intended to cause serious harm to 18-year-old Jennifer Levin back in 1986. After the proceedings, members of Jennifer Levin's family appeared at a news conference with prosecutors.
I'm speaking for all of us when I say that I don't think that we could have withstood another trial and the tensions and problems that went on for another year and a half.
Before accepting the guilty plea, we consulted fully with the Levin family. The family plainly hoped for a second-degree murder conviction. So did we.
Some jurors were quick to react to the plea bargain.
It was frustrating in the courtroom in as much as we really didn't know what was going on out there.
Before that fatal Central Park encounter, Chambers and Levin had met at Dorian's, a chic Manhattan bar for the preppy set, where we got reaction to the Chambers plea bargain.
I think that it was not fair whatsoever. I think that Jennifer deserved a trial just as he did. I think it's totally unfair. I feel sorry for the family.
How come?
Because she's gone, and he's just going to be in there for 2 years, or he'll probably be out on the streets again.
Chambers is surrendering to authorities Saturday. Charles Feldman, CNN, New York.
We'll be right back.
This Day in Hollywood brought to you by Lee Sculptured Nails.
Introducing Lee Sculptured Nails. Long-lasting like luxury salon nails, but affordable because you do them at home.
Lee Sculptured Nails. Affordable. But are they easy?
Like nothing you've ever used before. If you can polish your nails, you can do it. Glue on an extension.
No form.
Brush on the overlay.
Like nail polish.
Smooth shape and polish.
Lee Sculptured Nails are easy.
And long-lasting like salon nails. Plus, they're affordable.
Lee Sculptured Nails.
Who else but Lee?
Diana Ross arrived in Hollywood a solid gold superstar, but her scrapbook was filled with humble memories. After-school jobs as a busboy, weekend work as a Supreme, Barry Gordy, a failed marriage, and 3 daughters, her very own Supremes. Diana Ross, one of Hollywood's few bankable superstars, born today, March 26, 1944.
Every year, well over 500,000 small children are poisoned. Most of these poisonings could have been avoided. Children are curious and love to touch and taste new experiences. Don't let their curiosity harm them. Whether you store cleaners and other poisonous materials on a high shelf or under the sink, make sure the cabinet is guarded by a child-proof safety latch that can withstand curious, exploring fingers. A safety message from Underwriters Laboratories.
McGruff here. I want you to learn a song that tells people to say no to drugs. Users and losers and losers are users. I don't use drugs. Don't use drugs. Come on. If you know a user even part of the time, tell them to quit, take a bite out of crime. Users are losers and losers are users. So don't use drugs. Don't use drugs. Now, teach it to everybody and help take a bite out of crime.
The President's AIDS Commission will probably encourage voluntary AIDS testing in its final report due out in June, but it's likely to leave other matters to local agencies. Greg Lefebvre reports.
Oh, baby, what a fun.
This AIDS documentary aimed at Latinos in Spanish has been hailed by experts for its authenticity, but very few among its target audience will ever see it. It depicts prostitution, drug use, and homosexuality. It is too authentic, too hot for the state agency which funded it and which yanked the money for its distribution. Censorship is one of the many problems getting in the way of the President's Commission on AIDS. Many on the commission feel their principal goals are helping find a cure for AIDS and better care for AIDS patients. The issue of using explicit language and explicit graphics in AIDS education materials is something the AIDS Commission wants to avoid. And what about teaching safe sex techniques? The commission says, leave that to someone else.
I feel very strongly that we focus too heavily on condoms, clean needles, and those kinds of things. And while they're important, locals can decide whether they make sense or not for them. And what we ought to be doing is doing what we have been doing in our interim report, focusing on therapeutic drug development. The person with AIDS is interested in staying alive as long as he can, healthy, being undiscriminated against so he can stay in the workplace.
Minorities complained that AIDS education programs ignore ethnic differences.
Our community has simply been the last addressed, not the last infected.
Commission members were moved by their visit to the AIDS ward at San Francisco General Hospital. The commission seemed most impressed with volunteer-based Shanti Project and AIDS Foundation, Bay Area groups which have organized armies of volunteers to care for AIDS patients outside of hospitals and provide counseling and education to their friends and family. A major fear, controlling infected people who go on infecting others. Said one commission member, they might as well carry around a loaded gun. Greg Lefebvre, CNN, San Francisco.
6 people are dead after fire swept through an apartment building in Newark, New Jersey this morning. The victims were 4 adults and 2 children, all apparently of the same family. 3 other adults are reportedly in critical condition after jumping from windows to escape the flames. Some illegal aliens may get a reprieve. Congressional sources say legislation will be discussed next week to extend the one-year legalization program. Under the program, aliens who can prove they have lived in the U.S. since before 1982 are eligible to apply for legal residency. The new bill would move the May 4th deadline back by about 6 months. Skywatchers were left in awe in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. Soviet space debris re-entered the atmosphere in a brilliant fireworks display last night. An aerospace expert says the celestial shower was caused by an object larger than a railroad boxcar sent up just a couple of days ago. Hula hoops took the 50s by storm, and now that they're 30 years old, it's time for a big birthday. Ann McDermott reports on yesterday's celebrations.
Remember when you liked to do the hula hoop? Sure you remember. Think back to 1958. Whammo had just introduced the hula hoop, and it quickly became a worldwide sensation. Everybody hula hooped. Mom and Dad and even old Sparky got into the act. Hula hoops never really went away, but after that first big year, they were set aside for a time.
The company was sending out little sheets that told them how to drill holes in them so they could turn them into lawn sprinklers.
Now, 30 years later, time for another comeback. There is indeed a whole lot of shaking going on. At Disneyland, anyway, where more than 1,500 people celebrated the anniversary of the hula hoop by attempting a mass hula into the Guinness Book of World Records. But for many, this was a brand new experience.
How do you like it?
Well, a lot of people had that experience.
It's a little harder than you thought.
Some, though, looked as though they'd been hula hooping all their lives.
I like it. It's a lot of exercise. You get a lot of body tone.
Well, some get more body tone than others, but that may well depend on technique and practice.
So how's it going? Fine.
Nobody said it was easy, just fun. And Whammo is counting on that as they attempt to revive the craze with hula hoops for the 80s. This year's sales goal, 4 million hula hoops. And the firm thinks it'll happen, as former hoopsters, parents now, buy their old toys for their new kids. You might say the hula hoop has come full circle. Ann McDermott, CNN, Anaheim, California.
Headline Sports is next.
Are you greater than the sun that shines on everyone? Black, brown, yellow, red, and white? The sun does not discriminate.
Economics, production, accounting, distribution.
Most kids find economics dull and stale. But Junior Achievement, in partnership with educators, brings a breath of fresh air into the classroom by having successful business people show kids the one thing about business that every economic theory neglects: the excitement. Support Junior Achievement. Show a kid how America works.
Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. If you can, reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. If you can.
Open your home to a child while their family heals. Touch a life. Become a foster parent.
For healthy fun, there's lots for us to do. For homeless kids, there's special programs too. We learn about the facts of life, the facts of school, the facts of getting jobs and keeping cool. I'm really glad they made the Children's Aid Society. I'm really glad they made the Children's Aid Society.
It's 19 minutes after the hour. Time for Headline Sports.
I'm
I'm Bob Basella, Headline Sports. The Tar Heels of North Carolina advancing to the NCAA's Elite Eight. Friday night at Seattle's Kingdome, the Heels eliminating Michigan 78-69. J.R. Reed pumping in 18 points, Scott Williams leading the way with 19. Carolina is in the regional finals for the 4th time in 6 years, where it will face Arizona. Lute Olson's Wildcats drubbing Iowa 99-79. All-American Sean Elliott scoring 25, handing out 8 assists for the Cats. At the Midwest Regional in Pontiac, the Wildcats of Kansas State reaching the Final 8. Mitch Richmond scoring 27, hauling down 11 boards in a 73-70 upset of Big Ten champion Purdue. K-State now meets cross-state rival Kansas. All-American Danny Manning dominating Vanderbilt. Manning scores 38, 25 coming in the first half. The Jayhawks in a rout, 77-64. To the Forum in Inglewood, where the world champion Lakers continue to struggle. Nuggets guard Michael Adams scores a career-high 32, including the buzzer beater. Denver clips L.A. 120-119. A miracle comeback in Boston, but not by the Celtics. The visiting Sixers getting 29 from Charles Barkley, overcoming a 30-point third-quarter deficit for a 97-93 victory. It was the Bulls winning in OT, the Pacers by a point. Dallas gets Portland, the Spurs snap a 7-game Pistons win streak, and the Clippers beating the Warriors. On the ice at the Cap Center, Grant Ledyard's third-period tie-breaking goal giving Washington a 5-3 victory over the Flyers. It was the Devils and Sabres finishing in a 2-all tie, Pitt over Montreal, and the Canucks beat Chicago. Bob Basella, Headline Sports.
This is Sandy Kenyon with the Hollywood Minute. Dean Martin is out of the hospital but won't be back on the road until at least this summer. The entertainer was released from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles with doctor's orders not to resume his tour with Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. Martin may rejoin the group in July when the second leg of the tour begins in Los Angeles. He was hospitalized Monday for a flare-up of an old kidney problem. Animal rights activist Bob Barker has long maintained chimpanzees were beaten on the set of the movie Project X. Now comes another chapter in the controversy. A Los Angeles city official is charging the Humane Association with failing to protect animals used in movies. This is Sandy Kenyon with the Hollywood Minute.
Checking today's weather map, showers are forecast from the northern Pacific coast to the northern Rockies. It will be clear through much of the nation's midsection, but scattered snow is expected for the upper Great Lakes region, and rain will stretch along the entire East Coast. We'll have more news after this.
It is so smooth, you do not get jiggled around. They did something new, something. Somewhere...
Leaking through masonry walls is a problem in and around your home. Use a paint that stops water. Drylock. My masonry waterproofing paint goes on easy, right from the can, to interior and exterior masonry walls. You see, Drylock penetrates the pores and expands as it dries to become a part of your wall. And it's guaranteed to stop water, even under pressure. But don't just take my word for it. You can see it stop water. Look for this display at a dealer near you.
I won my first gold medal in 1956. Over the years, I've won 3 more. But I'm 50 now, and my body's changed. I don't bounce back from pain nearly as fast. That's why I take Metaprin.
Metaprin has the same medicine as Motrin, and nothing's proven faster for relief of muscle pain. It's also gentler to your stomach than aspirin.
Hey, some guys quit when they're ahead. Me, I'm going for another gold.
Metaprin, when you haven't got time for the pain.
Dollars and cents, there's a tiny automaker in Youngstown, Ohio that hand builds Avanti cars, but it's having big problems. Robert Vito reports.
Workers at Avanti, the only company that hand makes cars in the United States, thinks that like other handmade things in America, their jobs may become a thing of the past. Almost a third of the 40 Avanti dealers across the country say they don't want to sell the $50,000 cars anymore because of quality problems.
When you have a handcrafted automobile
competing against the types of cars of a Jaguar and a Mercedes. It simply doesn't stack up.
Avanti's owner blames the quality problems on workers who were angry when he announced last spring that he was moving his company from South Bend, Indiana to Youngstown, Ohio.
We had some sabotage on the cars. They would not do the final fit and finish quite right.
Kelly says all the complaints are taken care of. Customers are given another car to drive, and their Avanti is brought back to the factory for repairs, all free of charge. Workers in the Youngstown plant say they're concerned that the bad publicity about quality reflects on them and the future of the company.
I felt like someone was trying to take my job away from me. This area needs jobs. Why would they try to, to put a bad reputation on the company?
Many of the 200 workers who landed jobs here in Youngstown had to compete with 11,000 applicants who had been unemployed since steel mills shut down in the late 1970s. There are happy Avanti dealers, those who report strong sales and understand there's an art to selling a high-priced, high-performance car.
There's a certain finesse, if you will, to selling an Avanti or any of the other specialty automobiles.
Despite its problems, Avanti expects to double its production next year, going from 1 car a day to 2. Robert Vito, CNN, Youngstown, Ohio.
They say what goes up must come down, and members of an international club got to do that a lot on a Japanese roller coaster. Brian Jenkins reports.
They came, they saw, they coasted. And after a 3-minute spin on the world's newest and fastest roller coaster, members of ACE, American Coaster Enthusiasts, gave the ride their highest rating.
That was great, really good. They've shown that you can have a real good steel coaster without having 1,500 loops and corkscrews and all this. It is so smooth. You do not get jiggled around. They did something new, something.
Coaster Mike Danshaw is one of 30 aces, ages 15 to 50, who've paid their own way to see the finest coasters Japan has to offer.
What's wonderful about Japan is it has the second highest numbers of coasters other than America, way more than all of Europe put together. So we just had to come here to see why they loved roller coasters as much as we Americans do.
The ACE delegation started with Japan's oldest existing coaster, built 35 years ago in Tokyo's Hanayashiki amusement park. Then they headed to Yomiuri Land to take on the record-breaking Bandit, Japan's newest and biggest coaster. In fact, the Aces were the first to ride the Bandit, but only after Shinto priests bestowed a proper blessing. Even the coaster veterans must have said a few prayers as they reached the first peak, nearly 170 feet high. Then it was nearly a mile of hair-raising plunges and stomach-turning twists at speeds up to 68 miles an hour. The ride had everything Aces want.
Hills, speed, turns, drops, in any order, and fast and a lot.
And ask an ace his philosophy of life?
Just enjoy. Enjoy. Oh, we're going again? Oh, boy.
Brian Jenkins, CNN, Tokyo.
I'm Cindy Close. This is Headline News.
The Lumpy, Gomez, Miller, White, O'Donoghue, Kemp, Blumenfeld, Albert, Wells, Rabinowitz, Churkin, Kessler, Young, Gilmartin, Cullum, Seagraves, Wright, Schwartz, Collins, Albert, Willis, Rosen, Flanagan, Shelton, Fuentes, Hackett. The core, the coverage, the commitment. The news at 10 on 9.
The Foundation for Exceptional Children is searching for disabled young people who do their personal best. Each year, the Foundation's Yes, I Can program honors children in recognition of their very special accomplishments. If you know an outstanding disabled young person 2 to 21, write to Yes, I Can, Department T, Reston, Virginia, 22091. And yes, you can.
One of the most horrendous crimes is the sale and distribution of pornographic material. Pornography represents the dehumanization of the person. Porn perverts the nature of the male-female relationship. It breeds crime and attracts those who are bent on destroying the very fiber of our nation. Only when churches, the government, and business join forces in declaring war on the porn industry. Will we see pornography eliminated from our society?
Serving New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. You're watching Channel 9, WWOR-TV.